All right, it is 37 past the hour. Joining us now, Republican presidential candidate Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Republican Senator John McCain of Arizona. Good to have you both.
Senator McCain, you've been talking about the dangers of Syria for several years now. What do we do this morning?
Well, I think we have to have a strategy, and that entails American boots on the ground, along with a coalition force. I'll let Lindsey describe it better than I can, but we got to have a strategy, and we have to understand that ISIS is not undefeatable. We can, the most powerful nation on earth with our allies, can defeat ISIS, but if we don't, we are going to see more attacks, such as we saw in Paris, Beirut, and the Russian airliner. This is a failed strategy or a non-existent strategy, and it's got to change. Otherwise, it's going to be a matter of time before there's an attack on the United States of America.
And Lindsey, you were just saying this last Wednesday with us in New Hampshire, basically warning of what was coming if we didn't intervene in Syria.
Well, Joe, there's a real opportunity here to rally the world. I think Paris made things more real than ever, so I would encourage the president really to rally the world, to marry up with the French. You know, the Arabs, to a country, Turkey, they see the threats of ISIL. They have large armies. Let's use their armies in a smart way, integrate our forces within a regional army, get the French involved, any NATO nation that would like to help, and come up with a ground component to supplement the air campaign, going on the ground and destroy the caliphate at its headquarters, at its capital in Raqqa. They're not the JV team, but they're certainly not 10 feet tall. The worst possible solution is half measures. If we just drop a few bombs on these guys and that's it, they'll be stronger than ever.
Senator McCain, in terms of rallying the world, what about Russia and Iran?
They cannot play in this. Russia wants to prop up Bashar Assad. Bashar Assad's the guy that's killed 250,000 of his own people and driven. The reason why we have this refugee problem we have is because of Bashar Assad, not because of ISIS. And to somehow get in bed with Vladimir Putin and the Ayatollah would be a huge mistake. We would be furthering Russian and Iranian influence in the region, Russian and Iranian hegemony certainly in Syria and other countries in that part of the world, and we should have nothing to do with them. We should devise our own strategy with our allies, with NATO, but to somehow think that we have common values and common goals with Russia and Iran is insane. Walter Isaacson.
Senators, we were talking earlier about the fact that they go onto the dark net, some of the recruitment, that there's been a real push by the FBI, NSA to say we need some encryption breaking capabilities. The Silicon Valley companies have resisted it, won't do it. You all were involved with passing some laws on NSA reauthorization. What do we do now on whether or not we allow the NSA and intelligence agencies around the world to have more access to these communications?
Could I just say, having been involved in this issue heavily, it's time we had another key that would be kept safe and only revealed by means of a court order. Right now, with a recruitment and training and equipping can go on in secure sites, and we cannot let that continue to happen, in all due respect to my friends in Silicon Valley.
And Walter, I think there's a perfect storm brewing here to get hit again at home. We're reducing our defense spending to really all-time lows by 2021. We're going to be spending half what we normally spend on defense, having the smallest army since 1940, the smallest Navy since 1915. But we don't talk about the cuts to the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA. So John McCain is going to lead an effort to set these defense cuts aside so that we can prepare our nation and go on the offense. But there is no substitute for a ground component in this war. The region would supply the bulk of the forces. We'd have to be part of it. At the end of the day, we can destroy ISIL. We must destroy ISIL, and the average American gets it. I want to fight them in their backyard, so we don't fight them in our backyard. Those are your two choices.
And could I just finally add, Lindsey Graham and I and others, we'll sit down with the president.
Totally.
We want to work with him.
Yes.
But also, he should call in David Petraeus, General Mattis, General Keane, the architects of the surge, the smartest people that have succeeded militarily, and get their advice and counsel on this, because America is still the strongest nation on earth. We can defeat them if we have the strategy and the will.
And Joe, on the Republican side, there's some people on our side saying just shut down the refugees and we'll be safe. We need to vet anybody that comes in this country, but there are many ways to get in this country other than a floor of refugees. Let's go to the symptom of the problem, which is people being raped and murdered, have a safe haven and no-fly zone. Shutting down the refugee flow is no substitute for going on offense against ISIL.
Senator McCain, it's Willie Geist. As we heard these reports of French planes going off so quickly in a rapid response and taking out those sites in Raqqa, I think a lot of people around the world had the same reaction, which was, if we knew that quickly that those sites were there, why were they still standing after all these months of air power from the United States and other countries around the world?
Well, it's reminiscent of the Vietnam War, this incrementalism, mission creep, targets that have to be approved at the highest levels of government. It's a classic example of what happened in the Vietnam War. All these people that are making these decisions should read the Pentagon Papers, and of course targets have not been hit, and of course you have to get the highest level approval. Of course a whole lot of these sorties return to base without having dropped their weapons, and frankly, I'm not overwhelmed with 20 airstrikes by the French. I think it's wonderful, but it's not going, more of the same is not going to stop this virus and this disease, which will lead to threatening United States national security.
You know, the age of half measures has to end. At the end of the day, when you put 50 boots on the ground, you're telling ISIL you're not really serious as the American president to degrade and destroy them. And the French president declared war on ISIL. That was the right response. If all you do is drop bombs, then they don't take that response seriously.
Senators Lindsey Graham and John McCain, thank you very much for being on
Thank you
the show
guys
this
so
morning.
much.